My Parents' Painful Love Story Back to 1993. Episode 2. Time, it never stops. In the blink of an eye, 9 years had passed, and just like that, we're back in 1993. After years of sacrifice, hard work, and sleepless nights, Rose finally did it. She had saved enough money little by little for nearly a decade. She bought a house. Her whole family of 7 finally had a place to call home. Not only that, she also opened a small shop in the market. No more pushing trolleys. Now, she had a space, a little piece of dignity. Not on the street anymore. But not all things changed. Her past kept pulling her down. Her father remained to the same darkness: gambling, bad friends, drugs, no job, no dignity. Even after everything Rose did to support the family, she was still paying off his debts. And while guilt slowly crept into his heart, he never fully quit the addictions that ruined his life. His marriage was on the edge of collapse. Her mother, once a proud woman, now carried the shame of being the wife of a failure. Rose's father had never lifted a hand or raised his voice to his wife. Even in their richest days, she was never asked to work, only to raise the children. This is the story of my father, Tim. At the age of 23, he left his home and traveled across borders, searching for something more than just a job. He was chasing opportunity. He had a dream of starting a business. So, he visited a neighboring country, a land close to China, filled with trade potential. He hoped to find a way to build something from nothing. And then, he saw her, a young woman standing behind a small shop counter, selling fabric and clothes alongside her mother and siblings. She wasn't dressed fancy. She wasn't loud but she had something that stopped him cold. Strength. Her name was Rose. Tim didn't just fall for her beauty. He fell for her fire. She was independent. She managed the shop, handled money, took care of her entire family. At a time when women were rarely allowed to lead, Rose led like a man, with the heart of a lioness. To Tim, she was everything he didn't know he needed. And quietly, almost secretly, he started showing up to that market every day just to see her, to observe, to learn. He noticed her favorite fruit, her work habits, how she protected her little siblings, how cautious she was, how she never let anyone too close. And yet, he knew. He wanted her, not just as a partner, but as the foundation for a new life. So, he made a move. He asked his local friend to introduce him to Rose. And slowly, they became friends. Tim didn't just court her, he courted her whole family. He visited her home, talked to her parents, especially her troubled father. Every time her father gambled away their savings, Tim would quietly pay the debt behind the scenes. Not for attention, not for praise, but for Rose. He followed her to the market each day, worked beside her, helped with sales, laughed with her siblings, carried her burdens without asking for anything in return. But Rose stayed careful. Her life had been hard. People came and went. People promised, then disappeared. So, even as he helped her sell, she held her wallet tight. She didn't fully trust him. But slowly, she let her guard down. Because Tim didn't just care about her. He protected what she loved. He listened. He remembered the little things. He watched her world and treated it like his own. And somewhere between those dusty market streets, the long talks, the quiet care, Rose began to fall in love too. Not because of flowers, not because of wealth, but because for the first time in her life, she felt safe. That was my father, Tim. And that was how he won my mother's heart. But love is never that simple. And the road ahead was darker than either of them expected. Tim was determined to win Rose's heart. He brought her red roses, real gold necklaces, rings, and bracelets. But Rose didn't say yes. She refused his proposal. So, Tim changed his strategy. He started to emotionally pressure her, saying if she didn't love him back, he would end his own life. He even went to her father, begging him to convince Rose to marry him. At the same time, the gossip began. People whispered that she was living with a man before marriage. In her culture, that was a stain on a woman's honor. She was scared, ashamed. So she said yes. She agreed to marry Tim within just 3 months. But there was another man, A man named Jack. He wasn't loud or flashy. He was kind, gentle, the type of man who understood her without words. Jack had known Rose since childhood. They went to school together, played together. He had always loved her quietly, patiently. Rose once thought she might marry him someday, but after she chose Tim, she stopped talking to Jack. Jack disappeared. He was heartbroken, but not bitter. He secretly followed them for weeks, just to make sure she was okay. When he saw her smiling with Tim, he made a choice. He stepped back. He let go. Because real love, loving someone enough to walk away. Tim never returned to his home country. Once Rose's family agreed to the marriage, they traveled to a big city for wedding preparations. Back then, people often took a cruise ship to get there, but just before boarding, someone unexpected appeared. It was Jack. The boy who had loved Rose since childhood. The man who had silently watched her fall into someone else's arms. He came with one final question. Jack asked, "Marry me instead." "I accept everything. I will love you, even with your past with Tim." She said no. She had already chosen her path. A path she hoped would lead to love, but would soon become a storm. Before the wedding, Rose gave everything she owned. Her small shop, her house to her mother. She believed she was starting a new life, a better one. But marriage changed him. He became cold, harsh. His words turned into weapons. He mocked Rose, insulted her, started yelling, even raising his hand during arguments. He accused her of still being connected to Jack, of having feelings for another man. It didn't matter how loyal she was. Tim's jealousy grew like poison. Then came the words that broke her spirit. Tim said to Rose, "You can't even get pregnant. You're a useless woman. I regret marrying you." Those words cut deeper than any wound. Rose ran. She ran until her legs gave out. She found herself at the river port, alone, trembling, ready to end it all. She cried until her voice was gone. The pain in her chest was louder than the river beside her. This wasn't the life she dreamed of. She had never been in love before Tim. She had never done anything to deserve this cruelty. She sat at the river's edge, thinking, is my life meaningless? She considered ending everything, but somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, if I disappear, I'll shame my mother. I'll shame the family that I sacrificed everything for. What Rose didn't know, that she was already pregnant, and that one fragile decision at the river port, to stay alive, would change everything. Rose sat by the river, her heart shattered, her spirit broken. She thought of ending everything, but deep inside, fear held her back. Not fear of pain, but fear of becoming a shame to her family, a stain on her ancestors' name. She realized, if she ended her life, she'd only give power to those who hurt her. She wiped her tears, stood up, and whispered to herself, I will not be silent anymore. I will not let anyone destroy me. She returned home, not as a victim, but as a woman ready to protect what matters. Days later, Jack heard whispers in the market that Rose's husband was cruel, abusive. He couldn't ignore it. He came back, not as the boy she once knew, but as a man ready to give her a second chance. Jack asked, do you want to come back to me? I will accept everything, your past, your pain, all of it. Rose looked at him, eyes filled with tears. No, I'm already pregnant. But Jack replied without hesitation, I don't care. I'll love you and your child. I'll be a better man, a better father. Please, just let me try. What will Rose choose? Will she stay and fight for her marriage, or take a new path with the man who always loved her? Find out in the next episode. Releasing May 31st, 2025. Stay tuned.